Hey, I'm Jeff Ragovin, host of the Marketing Mix podcast. Welcome to Marketing Mixology. Today we're going to mix it up and do something a little different. We're going to be recording our session over drinks. We've got two of LA's finest marketing execs joining us today. First, we're going to dive into multi-channel marketing. Then we're going to pop over to influencer marketing. And then lastly, we're going to talk about the future of marketing altogether. All right, so I think the first question that we are going to talk about is multi-channel marketing strategy. So our consumers are all over the place. They're buying stuff in stores, they're buying stuff online. You know, we're doing stuff through paid ads, we're doing stuff through own channels. What do you guys think? Like, you guys both have very interesting businesses that target people in different capacities. So maybe Luke, we'll start with you. Like,
Yep.
What's your main focus? Like, where are you driving people into?
Yeah, for us, our retail footprint is still a small portion of our overall online business. So the way that we think about it is, on the retail side, it's being in the right neighborhoods and kind of being close to where our tribe is. And then online, it's being available for everyone, and as much as we can, reducing the frictions that somebody may encounter as they purchase home linens or home furnishings in general. And on the marketing side, the whole truism of being where your customer is still very much relevant for us. In the early days when the costs on Facebook were so low that anyone could be on it, it was great. But these days, I think there's one side of it is a sense of legitimacy. Mm-hmm. If you see a brand on a billboard, or if you see a brand on a subway, or if you see an ad on TV, the way that you interpret and perceive that brand is different than if you see it simply in your Instagram feed. And so I think it's important for us to interact with people across a variety of touch points in order to drive them to their place of purchase. At the end of the day, I'm sales channel agnostic, I'm product agnostic, and I'm marketing channel agnostic. It's whatever creates the best customer experience.
Yeah. And what about you, George? Like, you people buying tickets, going to the stadium, purchasing stuff online?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways to look at it. But what I would say is, if you're a football club, the ultimate end of the funnel is a season ticket holder. Right? That's when you have achieved nirvana. But in between there, you have people that will watch the live game on television, mm-hmm. on their phones. There are people that will go to the games. There are people that will buy merchandise. There are people that will play, younger fans that will play Madden and video games, and that's their entry into the product. So I think for us, while we have a great product and a great platform, there's also a lot of different touch points depending on where that fan is in mm-hmm. their journey.
Sure.
And so, completely different strategy for selling someone single game tickets or season tickets than selling someone a subscription product or a hat. And so we have to approach each channel and each demographic really mm-hmm. separately.
And you have budgets for everything. So you have budgets to drive people into actual shops, right?
Right, yeah.
You have budgets to drive people to purchase tickets, gaming, all that stuff.
All of that,
and lots
yeah.
of other locations where they could buy it.
Yeah.
Luke, what about you? So you guys were traditionally, all DTC brand,
yeah.
right? Now you're opening up all of these brick and mortar stores.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you thinking about mixing up the marketing, where it used to be all online,
yeah.
and now it's like it's online plus driving into an actual location?
Yeah, I think the way that we think about it is like, directly you can message a store, but if you think about it, messaging a store can only exist within a certain radius. At a certain point, like if I put a billboard in Palm Springs, like I don't think someone's going to drive to LA and come and shop with us. On the flip side, I think we try to passively market the stores online. I think ultimately, because you see something and then you do something, and generally you see an ad and then you look it up. We do to make sure to geolocate our pop-ups so that for those who care, it's like, hey, we have a store near you. So I think a lot of it isn't active marketing, but more implicit. Like if this is something that is of interest, then we have it. So like on the back of catalogs or on our website or on an ad or a landing page, it'll show up. But unless you're close enough to the store where it makes sense, like geofence, we won't talk about it.
Okay. What do you guys think as far as like the most impactful channel to date? George, we'll start with you.
Boy, you mean O&Os or?
Yeah, like across the board, like where would you find, if you had to invest most of your dollars, like what would be the most impactful channel for you guys?
Well, I think for us, when it comes to selling tickets, it's Facebook. The audience is just much larger there. The demo is the right demo versus something like Snapchat. And for our really avid fans, that is our own owned and operated apps. The behavior of someone on the app is much different than the behavior of someone on social or on the mobile web platform.
Sure. Luke?
I'll go a little different and be my D2C self, and I'll say podcasts. For us, we were lucky. We started working with Crooked Media or Pod Save America really early on, and so our relationship with them was able to grow with their popularity. And so it's included, being integrated into their live events, being integrated into their newsletter, being integrated into kind of their daily conversation. And I think they almost have become influencers in their own right. So it's like, there's the whole podcast storytelling angle. But then, culturally speaking, everything kind of came to a head at the right time.
Yeah.
And so I think we are looking for more relationships like that, where it goes beyond simply, here's a script, read our ad, and distract somebody, to like, how do you integrate a betting brand, which is a pretty mundane product, into a political podcast that is, meant to kind of change people's thoughts about how to get involved.
Cool. Well, I'm glad that you actually brought up influence, because that's a really hot topic these days. So influencer marketing has so many different levels, right? We have influencer marketing on this, macro scale with celebrities, and then we have influencer marketing, on the micro and even nano scale. So everyday people who are making recommendations.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, for you guys, how do you think about influencer marketing today? Maybe from your perspective, and even the company's perspective. We're kind of in this world where, we trust our friends and we trust what people say.
Yeah.
And obviously we buy products through word of mouth. That's never changed. But now we have this entire, business that has emerged, through influencer marketing.
Yeah.
So what's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, social proof is such an important part of the purchase experience, and it's kind of like, we look for influencers in the same way. When you learn about a brand, it's like, who is going to be the person who acts as the authenticator? And in that case, if it isn't a friend or a family member or a loved one, it's the people that you admire or you aspire to be. So influencers are definitely an important part of our marketing strategy. I would say the role of the influencer has changed, where initially it was just somebody saying, I like these things, to now being more and becoming more legitimate publishers with teams, and it's more not just one person, it's that person and their agency, or that person and their editorial director and their content director. To even like in the more extreme cases, like you look at Goop, what started as a newsletter is now a publisher, a marketplace, and its own D2C brand. And so as influencers have evolved, we try to evolve as well in terms of how we work with them. You have to be more careful about contracts, SOWs, deliverables, how people talk about it, exclusivity. It's still super valuable in a lot of ways. Some of the dollars that used to go directly to publishers are now going to influencers.
Yeah. I mean, I would think just with your brand alone, like I've influenced a lot of decisions through my friends, because I'm a customer and I'm like, oh, I love these sheets.
Yeah.
And I'm very picky when it comes to sheets. Like they have to be soft and nice, and So I've gotten a lot of my friends, and I'm not saying I'm an influencer, so to speak.
Well,
but
you
I am.
could be nano. You could be a nano influencer.
I'm a nano influencer. But I think that's important, right? And then on the other side of the spectrum, George, like you guys have all of the teams across the country. It's a kind of a different influence.
I think I like what you said, Luke. I think for us, where we've seen a lot of expansion, like if you think of the spectrum of influencers in our world, there's always a desire to keep the brand message consistent. Where the teams, though, have really leveraged that is there's a lot of people covering the Vikings. There's a lot of different media outlets that cover the Vikings. The Vikings have the best access to their players, which is really what drives engagement and fandom. And they now have some of the best resources to cover that. So they've really expanded the amount of content that they're doing around their players, what we call off the helmet. So you're getting much closer to that like one-to-one relationship with the team. And that's really some of our best influencers there. Then you have the players who are the younger players who are very active on social. Those would be our version of celebrity influencers.
Right.
You've
Well,
got
they
an
are
O-
celebrities, right? I mean,
Yeah, they are celebrities, but they're also within
Yeah.
family.
Cool. So I think, micro, nano, celebrity, macro. What about authenticity?
Yeah, I think that's become harder, as you grow your team and you become a business entity in your own right. The influencers that we work with have bills to pay. And so I think it's like you have to you approach the relationship in acknowledging the legitimacy. It's like whatever you think about influencers, that's one thing.
Right.
At the end of the day, like the IO is the IO and you either sign it or you don't. And so what we have come to think about is building longer term relationships. Because paying somebody for a post or a picture or a call out or a shout out is going to cost you a lot of money. And so at the end of the day, if it's about building a relationship, it's about building ROI, it's about partnering with somebody, we're looking for like who are the best people to partner with at the big scale. And at a smaller scale, it's more like who are we okay, with representing the brand. If it's just for imagery and collateral, these people have the creativity to produce original content. So as long as they're producing content that we're comfortable with, it's like, sure, we're happy to even work out smaller scale deals.
Okay. Yeah, and I think when you're talking about influencers as sports, professionals, like that's truly authentic because that's what they do.
Yeah,
Right?
I think what's been an interesting challenge for us over the last few years, and I think most of the clubs have really progressed on this, is there's authenticity and then there's the brand being the brand and not being able to say anything negative about itself.
Right.
And we have found over the years that when a team loses in the playoffs, the more content you produce, the higher your consumption is. So there's a tendency to say, we're done, let's run and hide, let's shut it down. But fans want to commiserate, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a way of being authentic
Sure.
with your fans to say, that was a tough loss, right? But here are the things that happened and here's why we lost and here's what we'll do next season. And so we see that clubs have gone from, you're having a bad season, you're going nowhere. You still need to produce the same amount of content.
Yeah.
You may need to change. Like for instance, people love photos. So whether you're winning or losing, people will consume a tremendous amount of photo content.
Yeah, and you need content for everything these days.
Yeah.
So that brings me into the next discussion topic. So, as we're kind of moving now into, we're a couple months into 2019, there's emerging platforms that are starting to take shape. I don't know if you guys have been hearing a lot about TikTok. Just curious what you guys think. What's the future of marketing going to be this year and next year? And what do you think about any threats? Amazon is taking a lot of market share. So
Yeah.
you're starting to see a lot of people shift budgets, from Facebook and Google and now, moving over to Amazon. So there's lots of changes that are happening. I'm just curious, with you guys being on very different ends of the spectrum, what do you think?
Yeah, I think for us, it's more about refining our strategy than completely changing it. I think we were fortunate in the time frame in which we kind of grew up in terms of being able to, had a lot of flexibility within our budget. So the last 2 years has been about defining what our marketing mix is, and now it's evolving it. With Amazon, it's a good example. Like if you don't sell on Amazon, you shouldn't really advertise on it. They are opening up DSP capabilities, but if I don't sell on Amazon, it's like, then a lot of the tabloids and the news, it's like, it doesn't really affect me. I think for us, it's more making sure that we don't have any channel reliance. Because what you're hearing over and over again is the people who put 60-70% of their budget in Facebook are now faced with the proposition of that everybody is on Facebook, or the 60-70% of your budget in Instagram, or so it's for us, like I think that's where we're moving, is that everybody is kind of carving out the channels that work for them and sticking to it rather than being all in on one thing.
Okay.
And I think for us, we have to be everywhere. And so certainly not TikTok yet, but when I think about Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Snapchat, we have to be on all those platforms. What I would say though is there's 32 clubs that all have very unique business goals. And so for them, it's important for them to prioritize how they leverage those platforms as marketing channels.
Anything around podcasting?
Um,
Obviously, Spotify buying 2 companies the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Like, you're more vertically integrated. It makes, and then also like Panoply shifting from being a purveyor of content to a technology platform as well. I think, yeah, the hard thing with podcasts, at least from the advertiser's perspective, is that the growth rate in content is outpacing the growth rate in consumption. And so, you know, if you think about it in terms of mind share, like how many podcasts do I have on rotation? You know, if I'm on Pod Save America, what other podcast do I need to be on in order to have the appropriate share of voice?
I kind of think about, I don't think necessarily about podcasting, but more about audio, because we've seen a real resurgence in live game audio and the desire to listen to live game audio. Certainly podcasting is important. And now with voice activated devices, like what clubs and sports entities are starting to build out on Alexa, that's a whole other platform. And so how do you think about advertising on an Alexa device or a Google device?
Well, Jennifer Cavanaugh, who came on our show a couple weeks ago, you know, she's the head of marketing for the Philadelphia Eagles. She's really coined the term around earfluence. So so earfluence, it's not necessarily podcasting, but it's audio.
Yeah.
Right? So people are literally listening, you know, in their cars, they're listening on their runs, they're listening in the office when they should be working. So that's, you know,
They're listening live, they're listening on demand, like there's a lot of different ways that's getting consumed.
So earfluence is like this big term that Jen kind of coined, and it's been interesting because the topic has come up a lot most recently. Great. Well, thank you guys. This has been awesome.
Thank you.
I think we need
Thank
to
you.
drink.
Yeah, I'll cheers to that.
I'll drink to that.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yes.
Cheers.